What you need to know for the first couple of units of AP Bio coming from somebody who got an A. Y'all can't say I don't put y'all on, because come on now. All right, so for unit 1, we have mostly about the chemistry of life. And this is basically talking a lot about like chemistry, you know, like the structure of bonds, how chemicals work, how molecules work. And the first thing that you learn about is the different types of macromolecules. So the macromolecules are fat, protein, nucleic acids. I think there was another one for protein structure. It's pretty simple. There's 4 different structures of it. So there's primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary, which is basically just dimensions. So you can think of it as like 1 is linear, then 2 is when it starts to fold, 3 is 3D, so when it starts to get a 3D shape, and 4 is the 4th dimension, which is when different amino acids start getting together. Now, for another interesting thing that you're going to learn about is which macromolecules have certain molecules. So for example, phospholipids and nucleic acids have phosphorus. Phospholipids put together, what do you get? Phospholipids. Phospho is phosphorus. Proteins can have everything else but phosphorus, and carbs don't have nitrogen or sulfur. A good way to think about this, especially in unit 1, is think about like real life. When you think about carbs, you think about like potatoes, rice, bread, proteins, obviously like meat. Phospholipids and nucleic acids are kind of hard to imagine, but you can kind of just imagine just from looking at the words what they're made of, and also like in real life. And another thing to remember is that ocean has a high heat capacity, which basically means that it just like its temperature is slow to change. So you can imagine that when you're boiling a big pot of water, it takes a while to boil, even if the stove is hot, because the ocean has, or water has a high heat capacity, so its temperature is slow to change. So coastal cities, their temperature is also slow to change. On the AP Bio test, you will see a question that looks like this, which is basically going to compare the temperature of different types of cities and ask you like why their temperature is like slow to change or something like that. All right, moving on to unit 2. Unit 2 gets a little bit more complicated, but you'll be fine. So one big thing that we learn about is the phospholipid bilayer. So in biology, you're going to be learning a lot about cell structure, cell function, yada, yada, yada. The biggest thing about cells that you absolutely need to know is that the phospholipid bilayer, it looks like this. It looks like a little person. So we have the head, which is going to be hydrophilic, which means it likes water. And then the tails are going to be 2 fatty acid tails, one saturated, one unsaturated, which are allergic. I say allergic, but they're not allergic. They're just repellent to water. So if you look at a real phospholipid bilayer, you'll see that you have these little figures like all around. It's like almost like a bubble. And you might even do a lab with bubbles to kind of learn how it works. Also, we learn a lot about water potential, right? So when it comes to water potential, it is a lot of math, all right? However, if you just kind of think about it, kind of memorize it, and also the AP Bio did have the formula for water potential, but it didn't give like specific details on it. I can't talk too much about the test, obviously, but because that's confidential. Anyways, so for water potential, the formula for water potential is going to be solute potential plus pressure potential. Pressure potential is almost always going to be 0. So just assume it's 0 unless they give it to you. And then for solute potential, the formula for that is negative I CRT. So I is ionization, which is going to be 1 for sucrose, 2 for salt. C is concentration molarity, which is moles per liter. R, again, pressure constant. It's given on the formula sheet, or it's just 0. And then T is temperature in Kelvin, which is Celsius plus 273. Now, a high water potential, just think of it like this, right? High water potential is high water content. Low water potential is low water content. Voiceover means taking over. Another important thing is isotonic, hypertonic, and hypotonic. So isotonic is when both the inside and outside of the cell is an equal water potential, so the cell stays the same. Hypertonic is when the cell shrinks due to expelling water, which is when the outside has a lower water potential than the inside. So because there's less water outside, the water will move outside of the cell to fill the empty space. And then in a hypotonic solution, the outside has more water and the inside has less. So the cell gets bigger because the water from the outside is moving into the inside of the cell.